Good morning, Ezra. Could you give a short introduction about yourself?
Good morning, Rokas. Yes, I'm Ezra Chase. Been in the real world for about 7 months now. I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict, and this course has completely changed my life.
Interesting. Okay. So are you comfortable going into your past about the alcohol part?
Absolutely. Um, you know, this community is a lot of younger guys prominently. I'm in my early 30s, and, I had to kind of go through life and beat my head against the wall of life a few dozen times. And I got sucked into it. I'll just dive right into it there. Some of these kids that are watching this, or some of these younger guys and gals, it's easy to get sucked into the social norms. The Hey, you've worked hard, you should go out and have a beverage. Or, hey, you've worked hard, you've showed up at your 9 to 5, you should get off and smoke a little Mary Jane or something, whatever the case may be. And for me, it was easy because I was in hospitality for over 10 years. I made good money. I'm a fairly decent looking guy, but it sucked me in, and it sucked me in hard. And I always kind of knew that I was meant for more, but I didn't know how to direct that energy. And so being someone that has an addictive personality and became an alcoholic because of such, um, yeah, it pulled me in quick. But as soon as I was able to hit my head hard enough, several times, as I said, I was able to kind of figure it out. And this platform has made it just that much easier.
Okay. So how many years were you addicted to alcohol?
I would say probably since I was about 20, 21, when I could legally drink, I started just uh, creating patterns and habits that just became my norm. So, again, it wasn't something like I was the bottle under the bed alcoholic, even in my later years or anything like that. It was just if there's alcohol around, I'm drinking all of it. So once I start, I don't stop. And so for me, if I can stay away from the first one and distract myself with better things for the rest of my life, I know that I'm A-okay.
Okay. And you say addictive personality. Do you think that comes from childhood, or is it something from genes potentially?
Um, I think it could be a combination of a couple different things, but I think that more people have addictive personalities in today's day and age than ever. I mean, look at what social media is doing to our dopamine levels. So many young people out there are depressed and anxious, and they don't know why. And the reason is because we have this kind of culture that's been bred to compare to one another, to sit here and think like, you know what, my life sucks. Why is this person's life so much better? And alcohol for me kind of just covered that up. It made me be able to go through my life just kind of, again, in a fog, in a, if you will, like looking through a glass window and not being able to see clearly. And so for me, I think the addictive part came really when I gave into those social norms. If I'm looking at my phone and all of a sudden I have to peel myself up from my phone after 30 minutes, that's my addictive part kicking in. Granted, on the other side of that, I will say, if I'm studying the stock campus or anything, and I look up and it's been 3 hours and I've been studying, that's also addictive. So positives and negatives to that addictive personality.
Mhm. Right. But I'm wondering why specifically alcohol got you hooked. Was it partly shutting off that voice of knowing you were working in hospitality for 10 years? So yeah, it was shutting off that voice knowing that you were meant for more. Was it a coping strategy or something else?
I think it goes a little deeper than that. That's a good question. It's definitely started off being that I was in the hospitality industry, but it became almost like a self-destruction. It was like people would sit there and say like, oh, they can be out and be a normie and go have a drink or two. For me, it was like, if I'm going to self-destruct, trust me, I'm going to self-destruct. And people would say like, oh, why do you drink so much? And it would be almost like I have to prove you right. So I would drink more, and I would intentionally hurt myself in that sense by drinking. And again, that cyclical madness went on for 10 years.
Hmm. And how did it affect the people around you?
Lost relationships, didn't really date around too much. Again, kind of always just hopped from one girl to the next girl to the next girl. My parents' relationship and mine kind of became a little bit, they're worried about me. They're the kind of people that can go out and have like a beer and split it and then even leave some left over. When I'm the person that would be looking at that like, what the heck? Why are you not finishing that beer? And so just putting the pressure on them of having to worry about me, getting behind the wheel of a car, going out in public and, just doing day-to-day things. It wasn't that I was necessarily struggling doing the day-to-day things, but as soon as I started drinking, that's where we opened up the can of worms. That's where it got tricky and that's where it got risky. And eventually it will, as it did for me, catch up.
Mm-hmm. And at what point did you break that habit?
Oh, well, growth for the most part for human beings always comes at an exponential rate from pain versus success. You can, of course, take success and continue on that. But that's why, again, this campus is so amazing, is because these young kids are starting off at such a young age to be able to figure it out. But I will say on that too, you have to kind of get rocked in the head several times by life before you really have perspective to know what it is that you want and what it is that, what life has to offer. You have to have something to compare it to. And so for me, it was literally, like I said, beating my head against the wall several times. And that end for me was my second DUI. And, it was just painful enough. I'm sitting here, I was 31 years old at the time. This was almost a year ago. And I'm just sitting in jail and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? This is before I found the real world and everything as well. But dude, what are you doing? You know this isn't you. You know this is not who you're meant to be. But guess what? You're making choices on a daily basis that will keep you here. And I don't know if you know, but in the United States and where I'm at located, this is it, like 2 strikes. The third strike, I'm out. Like if I ever, which I won't because it's anchored down so much, but if I ever get behind the wheel of a car and drink and drive again, like I'm in jail for a long time. So anchoring that down, knowing that that's not me, I don't have to identify as that individual. And then I can identify with the person that I'm meant to be, which is someone who influences people for the positive and helps people with their addiction, is what I focus on. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what was the process for you when you were rebuilding from that foundation?
Definitely not getting distracted with the kind of minutia of the day. There's so much going on, but really having that hyper focus, as I said, kind of that addictive personality to lock in and be like, okay, I'm focusing on my spiritual growth here. I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm getting in contact with my source energy, my higher power, versus like, where's my next dopamine hit going to come from? Or am I going to have some excitement or have a little fun? Life's not about that. Not right now. Not if you haven't deserved that yet. Once you've put in the work and you've done it and you've showed up day in and day out, then you can. But not right now. So does that answer your question?
I'd like a bit more on that. So let's say you were addicted for around 10 years. Then, that's a large habit to break. So other people who may be addicted to other things, how did they rebuild themselves? How did they break that habit and then rebuild?
Fill the void of whatever it is that you're trying to overcome with something else. An addiction or anything of that nature is never really gone. It's just replaced with something better. And that's where our habits come in. I could go out tomorrow and get hammered, but all I have to do is worry about today. That's it. Spending more time in the today, the space between thoughts, if you will. And so with that being said, today is what I have to worry about is my sobriety. And so what I do is I choose to fill my time with my work, with my personal work, with my projects, with learning, with my spiritual growth, my mental growth, my physical health. And before I know it, the day's done. You know what I mean? Like there's only so many things you can fit in a day. But then I don't have time to even think about something that used to control my life because you've replaced that with 1, 2, 3 different things that are much, much healthier. And I will say we all have that inner voice. We do all have that inner voice. That's our higher power, our future self, our source energy, if you will. We all have that little voice in us that says like, maybe you shouldn't do this. Sometimes it speaks louder to some people than others, but we all have it. And that consciousness, or I'm sorry, that subconscious level speaks to us in such a way sometimes when we train it that it'll tell us exactly when this is the right thing to do versus the wrong thing to do. And for me in my later years, I knew that it was the wrong thing to do. And that was the madness of it, is I kept choosing to make those wrong decisions versus making the right decisions.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Yeah, that is a great answer. Thank you. And how has your life progressed since quitting alcohol?
Night and day, brother. Night and day. I wake up without an alarm clock at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I work and grind until 10, 11, 12 midnight sometimes. I try not to, burn the candle at each end, but, we got one life. I'm trying to get after this thing. And, if I got to take a nap in the middle of the day, so be it, big deal. But I'm able to wake up without an alarm clock. I'm able to sit there and breathe deep, have real gratitude and appreciation for the day at hand, for my life, for the fact that I am alive, and then still have like 2, 3 hours before I get my day started when the rest of the world is just waking up. I've already been able to accomplish tenfold. And that doesn't mean that it takes hours. My daily routine really is about 45 minutes or less, morning routine, but it's consistent. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it's consistent, we can choose to get 1% better every single day. And that compounding effect, it really is real. So night and day difference.
All right. As an example, I know when I used to wake up at 4 a.m., it felt so good because all the things you're doing, the productive things in those first few hours when, as you're saying, everyone else is sleeping, it really snowballs into the rest of the day. Because just by the time everyone else is waking up, you've already accomplished so much and there's still so much of the day left. So yeah, it's definitely does feel like it has thought on the day and just projects you throughout it. So very cool. Okay. And what ended up bringing you to the real world?
Also, I've actually listened to Tate for probably a little over a couple years now, on and off through social media. And, I like a lot of his delivery. I understand what's kind of going on in the media and what they're obviously doing with him and his whole cause and what he's doing. But in reality, what really attracted me to it was the fact that, again, it was directed energy. Here's the water, horse, drink if you will. And that to me, especially because like I work in an industry where, I do work in high ticket and we sell a $10,000 product for $50 a month, you're joking me. I understand in some countries like that's a little much for some younger people and whatnot, but I'll say it again, you're joking me. It's $50 a month to learn high income skills that will, not maybe, but that will set you and your family up for freedom to not have to deal with the pain that's going to be coming down the road for the rest of the world, for the 98 percentile.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So overall, I'd say probably I was just attracted to it, man. I can't really put a pinpoint of like, oh, this is a catalyst. Why? It was more or less like, I'm going to take advantage of this because if I don't, I'm the fool.
Mm-hmm. And a bit more on what kind of an impact has Tate had on you?
I would definitely say an overall mindset shift, an overall understanding of maybe some of the things that, we do listen to on the news, which I don't listen to that crap anymore and really I've never been a fan of it, but listening to things that are the painful things to hear. And, kind of like I said earlier, if it hurts, instead of trying to stray away from it and, oh no, I don't want to do that, move towards it. And so some of the stuff that Tate initially started talking about was painful. It wasn't painful like physically, but it was painful mentally, maybe even a painful a little bit emotionally. Well, what the heck's wrong with me? Why am I 31 years old and I'm not further along? Why am I, here and I'm not doing this? And so listening to those painful things and saying, I want that. If he's where I want to be in life, I got to keep learning from him. I got to keep getting around him and the people that are around him. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's, as you know, the quickest way to success is by getting around the people that are already there. As I said, top 5 people, and I'll just use my addiction for example. If you hang out with 5 people who are drinking alcohol, hospitality, all the time, you're going to be the 6th eventually. Your willpower as a human being is only so strong. But if you get around 6 people or 5 people that are stock trading, have their mindset in checked, are working on other projects for their personal business and their professional life and are always on the move, you're going to be the 6th. You're going to be that person eventually who they just rub off on. And so rubbing shoulders with people who are multimillionaires, rubbing shoulders with people who are moving in that right direction, um, that's the crowd that I want to be a part of. That's the wolf pack that 100%.
And how are you putting yourself in that position to rub shoulders with those kind of people?
Um, Definitely, again, within the university itself, getting around, being more in the chats, being more active and everything within people, reading their comments, trying to give value back to people. If anything that I've learned, even again through life and my alcoholism, is you get in life what you contribute back and serve to society. And that's just a law of the universe. And so being able to service people in the university, being able to service people just by every person that I come in contact with, having the mindset of, am I going to make their day better? And then I literally just let the law of attraction and the world take care of the rest. I don't think about negative things in a certain context. And if I do, I reevaluate and I meditate on it and reflect on it immediately. But I've trained myself to do that. And so listening to people who have been there, listening to Tate, listening to Tristan, listening to other people online, going back and studying the greats, Jim Rohn, his mentor, Mr. Schoaf, and some of these people that, again, like, Napoleon Hill, you listen to them, and even though some of their ideologies and principles were in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, they're highly applicable still to today's day and age because universal success laws are just that. They're universal and they're timeless. And so that's how I get my mind set, because my internal being is at conflict with the rest of the world on a daily basis. So if I don't do something, I'll put it to you this way. Here's a great analogy. Your mind is like a garden, okay? And so when you go out to the garden, everything, you're checking it in the morning. What do? You're looking for what? Weeds. You're just making sure that everything's blossoming, looking good, they're watered, everything. Well, if you find some weeds, you don't just graze over them and, okay, they'll be fine. No, you pull those bad boys out right then and there. Because what happens to weeds if you let them go unmanaged? They grow, and they grow rapidly. Well, negativity in this world is like a weed of the mind. If you let it go, it's a seed planted and it will grow much quicker even than some of those positive thoughts. But if, again, you're watering the positive thoughts and you're tilling the garden often, you're good to go. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And that applies the same, not just with thoughts, but habits as well. Or maybe you can say that habits are initially thoughts. But yeah, if you don't entertain that initial thought to do the whatever habit you are trying to get rid of, then if you end it at that first thought stage, then it won't develop into something more. It's usually people who end up entertaining that first thought that then leads to just a negative downward spiral, and then they end up starting to either binge, if it's, let's say, binge eating, or just binging alcohol or whatever. I think that's how. Would you say that's how it applies as well? I don't know if I rambled.
No, not at all. Absolutely, man. I mean, and the addictive part, again, it comes in so many different channels. You know what I mean? Like you said, even with like food or something, the choices that we're making. That's one of the biggest things that I love about this university too, is that it's not just a, hey, here's your campus, here's your campus, here's your campus. It's, we're all in this collectively. So let's move as one. And there is such a thing as called the collective mind. And, again, as we learn and we keep growing and we learn about these things, you understand that a lot of what Andrew talks about has been around for years. This isn't new age knowledge that he's just coming up with. He's telling you these universal principles in a modern age framework. So, yeah, that's kind of my spin on it.
Okay, cool. So again, speaking of the real world, what did you actually get into when you joined?
I'm definitely one of those people that was like, yep, all the campuses. And then as I was just in there and, figured out what I liked, what I didn't like and everything, I've left a couple for the time being. They might come back up on my radar within the next, several months or so. But the main one that I really dove into was the stock market campus. And then, of course, like fitness and business mastery, as I feel like they're kind of a general growth aspect. But stock market campus has been my number one.
Good. And how have things developed for you in that sense from when you started stock trading or investing?
Tremendous, man. I've been I've been in the markets losing for probably the better part of 5 years. And when I say losing, it means that I haven't had wins. It's just that I've lost more than I've won. And that comes down to not having disciplined and directed strategies, bouncing, jumping from different one to different one. And, I tried momentum trading. I tried Forex. I tried just buying and holding random stocks that I thought were going to be good. And so the overall from long term to swing trades to day trading, and mind you, side note, I've paid thousands of dollars to learn those other strategies as well that didn't work out. The momentum trading one, for example, was 3,500 alone, and I probably didn't even make. I mean, yeah, I didn't make $100 back, maybe $100. And so for $50 a month to learn the extensiveness of the market, whether it be Forex, whether it be the entire market like the S&P or NASDAQ, um, or, looking at bigger names for swing plays, everything. Like I'd never known how to connect the dots. And it just did. It clicked. And I just kept showing up. I kept watching. I kept going through the videos 1, 2, 3 times. And like I said, I got to kind of do things 3 or 4 times myself. I'm a little hard headed. But, I just kept coming around. I kept coming around. I kept coming around. I joined, like I said, in December. It probably took me about 3, 4 months to really get engaged. But I kept coming around. And that's what did it for me. So I finally kind of settled on a strategy of a little bit of day trading and swing trading. And so far it's been tremendous, man. It really has.
Good. So, in terms of figures, what would you attribute to the reward?
Overall, as far as like from what my mindset has shifted with my day job and stock trading, I guess is the main two. Um, I mean, my income, I've earned an extra $20,000 a year. And then stock trading, I'll just tell you, some recent wins. I mean, last week alone, I'm up 2,500 on track for another, on track to be 10K for the month. But that's very much, again, come through trial and error. And it's just so amazing to see a university for $50 a month, to see how explosive the growth can be if you just put in the time. And
Mhm.
so, again, just a week's worth of gains. I've made several hundred back, probably an additional 2,000 or so since I really dove in. But this last week has been my biggest week at 2,500.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank
So,
you.
since you said you've bought some other courses before, probably looked at things online on the internet as well, how different is the material in the real world compared to all of that?
I mean, even the structure, bro, it's just night and day. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like some of these programs are very good, and you can tell that there's this individual's life work. But Rokas, we're in the alternative education space, brother. Um, it's so funny because people will go pay tens of thousands of dollars to a university that doesn't give a crap about them. And again, they just pump out more degrees and everything. And, you have to pay more money every year. And so to have access to something where it's not only in depth, it's not only different professors, but everybody also within the community. It's not like students, you maybe have like 1 or 2 students that you're friends with that want to help you out. But when you have a community of hundreds of people that are there, that are all like minded, and as I said earlier, the collective mind helping each other, you have no choice but to grow. But you do have a choice. You have a choice to engage because nobody's willing to help you out if you're not willing to help yourself. And so, the difference in some of these trading communities and everything that you see, and again, there are some good ones out there that have Discord channels and everything. But, they're charging $500, $1,000 a month. And really, everything that they're doing, I'd say that the real world does better.
Mhm. Interesting. Okay. And yeah, what you're saying about universities, uh, it is interesting. Now, I mean, if you're actually looking to learn things, then using resources such as the real world is just so much better. Like, yeah, universities are outdated at this point, and people thinking it's for the diploma. It's as Tate says, there's double inflation on it. It's increasing every year in terms of the number of diplomas that are out, and the price of it is also increasing every single year.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I wonder how long it will take for university to actually be outdated. I guess there are still some degrees which are useful, which you can't get from something like the real world. But yeah, overall, I wonder when that shift would happen to platforms such as this.
We'll see it in
Okay,
our lifetime, that's for sure.
okay, so that was another ramble. Now on to what would you say was the biggest challenge you faced when you were starting out in the stocks campus?
Biggest challenge was getting over my own emotions, getting over my own, just getting out of my own way. We all again have this inner being, if you will, that tries to, defeat us before we even get started. And, it really was just getting out of my own way, sitting on my hands, not FOMO trading, not trying to, be in every single trade that the professor talked about, not trying to overextend my account, not trying to let a play out. If I entered a trade and it maybe was a swing trade for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, not getting all jacked up that I'm up a day later and selling it, and then also not getting all bent out of shape a day or 2 days or 3 days later when I'm negative. Letting that thing breathe and being in control of my emotions because of, again, having that attachment to my higher power, but realizing that, dude, the market's going to fluctuate. It's going to do its thing. There's no reason to sit here and rush the process. So that's probably the biggest thing is when I first came in, I tried to rush the process again, like I do, like humans we love to do. Okay, cool. You're telling me to get from point A to point B. It's the quickest way I can get there. And that does work to a certain extent, unless you're dealing with something like your emotions. Your emotions like a muscle. You have to flex them, you have to work on them. And when I came in, my emotional bandwidth was not what it is today.
All right, good. Good to hear, again, the progress you've made and the mentality, everything. Now, is there any more in terms of insights that come to mind from the real world? Or would you say you've covered most already?
I mean, I could probably ramble on myself, but in all honesty, I think it just comes down to the choices that you make and staying around enough. And you know what? Today might not be the day that you go full force, but know that you have a choice every day to go full force. And every day that you maybe don't go full force, you could be putting yourself and your future self behind by a year, 2 years, 5 years. You just don't know. And for me, I had these thoughts when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. And it took me 10 years to finally start acting on those.
Okay, so since you're on this trajectory now, where do you see your life heading in the short term, medium term, and long term?
Um, Short term, definitely continuing down the path that I'm in, continuing to develop that relationship with my higher power, with myself, um, continuing to grow my brokerage account, of course, continue to grow my income through other skills, and then more of a midterm is to start to give back to the community in such a way to where I want to take on 5, 10 guys, whether they're within the real world or not, that also struggle with alcoholism and addiction, and start to have kind of an accountability group. People that again, maybe you're like, all right, I'm out here and maybe I'm just drinking a little bit too much, or maybe I'm on my phone a little bit too much. And there's a difference in working on your phone. I mean, I work from my phone, I work remote all the time. And I'm sure people all the time are like, oh my God, that guy's just on his phone all the time. No, I'm working. But then when I'm not working, I'm digitally detached. And so a midterm goal would be definitely starting that and growing, a group of men that are trying to move in the same way. And then long term is, exponentially growing that. I'd eventually like to, again, be a full-time trader and in some ways a motivational speaker and inspirational speaker for, again, addiction counseling, not even counseling. I'm sorry, that's like an official, but addiction and just men that have succumbed to what I did. I just know that, if I can help one other guy out there not struggle like I did for the better part of a decade, that's a win for me. But my ultimate long-term goal for that is to impact 1 million young men.
Beautiful. Love to hear that. And we'll be holding you accountable to all of that during follow up interviews we do. So let me know how all of that progresses in future.
No doubt.
Yeah, I'm happy to end off here. So for my final question, for people who are unsure about joining the real world because maybe they are thinking it could be a scam for the $50, what advice would you have to them?
That's easy. All right. Sing on. Lazy people think everything is a scam. Lazy people think everything's a scam, all right? It's $50 a month. Come around, spend the $50, get in each campus, apply to all of them if you will, like I did. But if you don't take action, this world is not going to just push you over like it did decades ago. It's going to steamroll you. And if you let that happen, it's no one's fault but yourself. Let's get this.
Very well put. I like that. Okay, so for people who want to find out more about you or contact you, where can they do so?
Right now, I am working. I've kind of detached from social media as I do it for work and whatnot too. But now my personal page, I'm going to be starting to post a lot more as far as addiction and everything on Instagram. But it is Ezra.chase underscore, Ezra.chase underscore. And, let's connect on there. And then, of course, everybody within the community, connect with me on in the real world. Love to chat with you. Love to see if we can, bring some value to each other. And I would love to be able to help out in any way that I can.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll add that to the description of the video. And yeah, Ezra, great conversation. Thank you for sharing all your insights and your experience and how you overcame that addiction of yours. I mean, yeah, it was very interesting and insightful to listen to. So I look forward to the follow-up interview in about 3 months, and I wish you all the best until then.
Rokas, appreciate you, man. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to chatting with you soon.